I'm 28 years old and I live in a big city with my husband. Our house is at the end of the street, so every now and then people show up wanting to sell things. My husband recently started a new job and had to travel to Texas for a 2-week training. I was a little upset about being alone for so long, but I decided it was a good opportunity to be brave. I took the opportunity to watch all the programs he doesn't like and make food he doesn't like. While he was gone, I followed my normal routine. I work part-time about 20 hours a week, and the rest of the time I stay at home watching TV and cleaning. One day I was sitting on the couch and heard someone knocking on the door. I thought it was a delivery, so I waited to hear the glass door close, meaning the delivery guy had already left, but I didn't hear anything. Then another knock. I'm not much of a talker with strangers, so I didn't even go to answer. I ignored it and continued watching TV, but when I heard another knock, I paused the program and went to look out the window. I saw a man I didn't know at my door, so I didn't open it. He raised his hands, a little frustrated, and walked away. This scared me a little, but I let it go. A few days later I got home from work and started cooking dinner. As I was washing the dishes, I heard another knock on the door. I went to look through the window and saw the same man as before, now with another guy. The first one was huge, looked like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and was holding a clipboard. The other was very thin and taller than me. They said they were there to install a security system and that my husband had arranged the meeting, but I knew that wasn't true. We always make important decisions together, and he never mentioned it. They even showed my address on the clipboard, but I was suspicious. Still, I unlocked the glass door to take a look, thinking maybe my husband had forgotten to tell me. The papers looked normal, and they said they just needed to go in to see where to install the sensors. Since I was alone at home, I didn't feel comfortable letting them in. The thin man showed a badge and insisted they were from a security company, but I wasn't convinced. So, I joked that I could also make a fake badge like I'm the Pope, but that doesn't mean anything, right? The man started gesturing as if he was going to try to get in the door, and I said I was sorry, but that I was canceling any services and that they needed to leave. The man looked angry and started pushing the door, which was half open. He looked at me as if he wanted to scare me and said they needed to go in to sort everything out. I was really irritated because they were insisting on coming in even after I said, no. So, I told them to leave and that, if necessary, I would schedule another day. I closed the door in their faces, locked it and waited for them to leave. I looked out the window to see which car they would get into, but they walked down the street. When I was sure they were gone, I texted my husband, but he said he didn't know who the men were. I was very scared, so I looked up the security company's number on Google and told the woman who answered everything. She said those men didn't work for them and there was no record of an appointment coming to my house. I became even more worried, and she suggested that I go to the police to make a report. I went to the police and told them what happened, but they said they couldn't do much as I didn't know who those men were. I explained that I would be home alone for another week and asked them to check out my neighborhood every now and then. They agreed, and so I returned home, checking that all the doors and windows were securely locked. I tried not to think about it anymore. The following week, I went to lunch with my mother in the city. When we got back to my house, we saw my neighbor outside. My mother didn't know her yet, so I took the opportunity to introduce them. While we were talking, a car stopped. It was an ordinary car without a company brand. A woman came down and came up to us, saying she was from the security company and that her partner was there a few days ago to install the system, but that I didn't let her. I was suspicious and said there might be some misunderstanding, because I had already called the company and they said there was no appointment for my house. So I asked who she was and told her to wait while I called the police. When I went to call 911, the woman ran away. When the police arrived, they said they couldn't do anything because I hadn't written down the license plate number. The whole situation was very strange and scary, and to this day we don't know who those people were. Fortunately, they never came back. Ultimately, I'm still trying to understand what happened to my mother.
We're about to start the next story, but first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything.
I'm a 17-year-old boy and most of the time I stay at home alone, as my parents and my 21-year-old sister spend a lot of time at our cabin, which is a few kilometers away. I'm used to being alone, especially in the summer, because I work and can't go to and from the cabin. Generally, I don't get scared, as I'm already used to the noises in the old house and I have my sister's dog for company. Having my dog nearby was comforting because most of the noises I heard could be attributed to him, like sounds from the house or noises in the yard. If something strange happened, he would bark loudly to let me know. But in reality, he's the type to bark at anything, like people passing by on the street. So, his barking at night was already normal for me. But that Friday, he started barking around midnight and seemed more serious. Even though I'm used to being alone, I'm still afraid that someone might try to enter the house without permission. At first I thought he was just barking at someone walking by in the alley near our glass door. I thought he would stop barking soon, but he didn't. He continued barking and growling for a long time. I decided to get out of bed, which is in the basement, and go upstairs to see what was going on. As soon as I arrived, I saw that he was alert, staring at the glass door. That made me feel a little calmer for a second, but when I went over to close the curtains and get back into bed, I noticed the door was open a little, maybe 2 or 4 inches. I was paralyzed. I had let my dog out earlier that night, but I knew I had closed the door. I never leave this door open because I'm very careful and anxious, especially with the idea of break-ins. I'm always careful to lock everything when I'm home alone, and I'm absolutely sure I've closed the door. But at that moment, I didn't want to think about it too much, because it could make me very anxious, maybe even have a panic attack. So I closed and locked the door, making sure it was actually locked. All the lights in the house were off, and I was trying to calm down. I used my phone's flashlight to take a look at the entire second floor of my house, which is 3 stories high. I opened the cupboards and looked at other places where someone could hide, just to be calm. I found nothing and went back to my basement room. As I tried to calm down, I heard footsteps walking upstairs, which is also the ceiling of my room. At first I thought it was just my imagination, but then it started to look like human footsteps. It went back and forth for about 10 minutes, until I put my headphones on and tried to calm myself down until I could sleep. Later, around 2 a.m., my sister came home from work. I woke up and found my dog in the basement, which was strange since he never goes there and there's even a gate to stop him from going down. He was whining at my bedroom door. When I got up to let him out, my sister came in. We decided to let our dog out the front door instead of the glass patio door. Afterwards, we talked for a bit before I went back to the basement and my sister went to the bathroom. In the following days, I was busy and forgot about the door. I didn't say anything to anyone. Only later, on a movie night with my sister and mom, did I remember the door while we were choosing horror movies to watch. My sister then commented that that same night that the dog was in the basement, the glass door was open again, even after it had been locked from the inside. My stomach sank and I started to shake. First, we tried to find explanations, like maybe my sister let the dog out and forgot to close the door. But we remember that we used the front door that night. Then we started to wonder why someone would enter the house without taking anything. Then it occurred to me that perhaps I had accidentally locked someone inside the house. This person could have realized that the house was not empty, despite how it looked, with all the lights off and the rest of the family gone. Furthermore, there was a dog that would bark if you tried to leave. Then, while I was in the basement and my sister was in the bathroom, the person must have run out the glass door. This would explain why the door was open again, wider than before, as if they had run out to avoid making a noise when closing. Either way, this makes too much sense to ignore easily. I know it's not very likely, especially since nothing was taken, but in my small town, there have been many cases of break-ins where nothing was stolen or there was just vandalism. So, it's not as impossible as it might seem in a bigger city. I'm really confused and worried that someone might have been in my house while I was sleeping alone in the basement. Part of me doesn't want to believe this, but there are too many weird things that fit together to ignore how scary this is. When I was a child, my house had a balcony connected to my mother's room and mine, with large glass doors. There were 2 trees near the porch and I liked climbing them. One night, when I was about 13, I was home alone because my mother and brother were out. I was reading in bed with a dim light and I heard a noise, like something was moving in one of the trees outside. I didn't worry too much because we used to have possums and bats in the area. There were thin curtains on the glass doors, and the light from the street lamps always passed through them. After hearing the noise in the tree, I saw a shadow slowly moving through the doors. I quickly turned off the reading light and stayed very still. The shadow was tall, so it couldn't be one of the neighboring children or my mother, who was short. The person moved slowly, trying not to be noticed. She probably couldn't see me, but I could see her because of the streetlights. I was paralyzed, unable to move or think. Then I heard someone trying to open a glass door. I didn't know if my mother had locked it or not, but I didn't want to take any chances. I moved quickly and silently to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened to what the person was doing. She was still trying to open the glass door, but she couldn't seem to. I was relieved. Soon after, I heard light footsteps returning across the balcony towards the glass doors of my room. I saw the shadow stop right in front of the doors and I froze again. The person couldn't see me, but I could see the shadow of a hand reaching for the doorknob. My heart raced. I wondered if I had locked those doors or forgotten. Luckily, when the person tried to open it, the door didn't open because it was locked. I sighed in relief, worried that the person might have heard. She started pacing back and forth on the porch. I didn't have a cell phone because my mother thought I was too young, and the landline was on the other side of the house. I was too scared to look away from the person, so I stood there, crying silently and praying they would go away. Then I heard the person stop and say, "I could break the glass, you know?" Before I could process it, I saw car headlights coming around the corner and stopping at our gate. My mother had arrived home. The person on the porch ran out and I heard a loud thump as they jumped. When my mother came in, I was in shock and couldn't really explain what had happened. Eventually I told her and she called the police. They never found anyone, but a neighbor reported seeing a truck on the street, which matched the description of a truck involved in attempted child abductions near my school, just a block away. The police thought maybe the person was following me, waiting for a chance to catch me when I was alone.